Have you ever felt like your mind was working against you? You lie awake at night, replaying a conversation, regretting a decision, worrying about a future that hasn't even happened yet. It's like your thoughts are a storm, and you're just holding on, hoping not to get swept away. But what if the storm wasn't out there but in here? And what if, just maybe, you had the power to calm it? Welcome to a journey that begins with a radical idea that you are not at the mercy of your emotions, your past, or your circumstances. You are the master of your mind, or at least, you can be. This is the promise of Stoicism, an ancient philosophy born in chaos, forged in hardship, and still deeply relevant today. If you stay with me through this series, you'll discover 10 timeless lessons that will help you stop overthinking, let go of anxiety, and regain control over your emotional world. This isn't just theory. These are tools for your daily battles, tools to build peace, strength, and clarity in a noisy world. Let's begin with the foundation of it all: perception. The Stoics believe that your perception isn't just a passive lens, it's the painter of your experience. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. That's not just a nice quote. That's a blueprint for freedom. Because here's the truth: you don't see the world as it is. You see it as you are. And that means if you can change your lens, you can change your life. Think about it: two people experience the same event. One feels broken, the other feels empowered. What's the difference? The event didn't change. Their perception did. And perception is a choice, one you make every single moment. Let me tell you a quick story. There was once a soldier returning from war, wounded, weary, and angry. He saw every loud noise as a threat, every stranger as an enemy, every quiet moment as a trap. Until a mentor told him, "This, your battle is over. But your war with your mind has just begun. Now you must unlearn how to fight and relearn how to see." It changed everything for him. Not because the world got easier, but because his vision did. So, how do we start shifting our perception? Begin with awareness. Each morning, write down the first few thoughts that come to you. Are they filled with fear, complaint, doubt? That's your mind's default programming. But it's not permanent. You can edit it. When you catch yourself interpreting something negatively, pause. Ask, is there another way to see this? That question alone can soften a storm. The Stoics didn't deny reality. They just refused to be prisoners of it. When someone insulted them, they didn't dwell. They observed. They chose not to give their energy to what didn't serve them. Their minds were fortresses, strong, disciplined, and deliberate. And this isn't just about feeling better. It's about being better. Because when you control how you perceive the world, you begin to control how you show up in it. No longer reactive. No longer a victim. But grounded, focused, and calm like a seasoned captain in turbulent seas. You might be thinking, but it's hard. My mind just runs wild. Of course it does. That's what minds do unless we train them. And training starts now. With a single shift. With a single truth. You are not your thoughts. You are the observer of them. And that means you can choose which ones to feed and which ones to let go. Let's go deeper. If perception is the lens, then rationality is the compass. It's what helps you steer, especially when the sea is rough. The Stoics taught that reason isn't just a mental tool, it's your inner guide, your defense against chaos. Marcus Aurelius believed that our greatest power lies in our ability to think clearly, even under pressure. Especially under pressure. Rationality doesn't mean being cold. It means being clear. It means stepping back before reacting. It means asking, is this worth my energy, before giving it. Think about how many times you've acted on impulse, only to regret it moments later. That's the cost of letting your emotions steer the ship. Stoicism invites you to pause, breathe, and respond with wisdom, not just reflex. Here's a practical way to start the next time you face a decision, big or small. Write down your options. Then ask yourself, which of these aligns with reason, and which comes from fear or impulse. You'll begin to notice how often emotion tries to trick you into urgency, drama, or self-minus doubt. But the calm mind, it sees clearly. It waits. It acts only when ready. Imagine this: you're in traffic, running late. Someone cuts you off. Your body floods with tension. Your hands grip the wheel. Now pause. Ask, can I control this moment or only my reaction to it? You already know the answer. The Stoics knew it too. That's why they trained their minds daily not to suppress emotion, but to understand it, to steer it with reason. This is where control begins. With clarity. And clarity only comes when you stop letting the outside world dictate your inside world. Marcus once wrote, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. That obstacle in front of you? It's not a stop sign. It's a doorway. But only if you have the eyes and the mind to see it that way. And that brings us to a key practice: distinguish what you can control from what you can't. Sounds simple. It's not. Because we cling. We cling to outcomes, people, past regrets, future fears. But the Stoic path requires letting go, not out of weakness, but out of strength. Strength to say, this is beyond me. But what's within me I will master. So when something rattles you, stop and list it out. What part of this can I influence? What part must I release? That one step alone is a turning point. It turns chaos into order, emotion into clarity, reaction into response. Rationality is your shield, not from life but from yourself, from the parts of you that sabotage, spiral, overthink, overreact. When you use it well, you become not just stronger but quieter inside. And that quiet is where your power lies. Because the Stoics weren't chasing comfort. They were building character. They knew storms would come. So they prepared not by changing the world, but by strengthening the mind. Now, let's turn inward. The next Stoic secret is perhaps the most important of all: mastering your mind. Because until you master the mind, it masters you. And often, it does so quietly in patterns you don't even notice. Worry, envy, rumination. These aren't just emotions. They are habits. And habits can be changed. Marcus Aurelius reminds us the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. In other words, what you consistently think, you become. If your mind is filled with fear, resentment, or regret, then your life will reflect that. But if you train your thoughts with awareness and purpose, your inner world and eventually your outer world will shift. Here's the truth: the Stoics understood the greatest prison is the one we build inside ourselves. When you let someone else's words live rent-free in your mind, when you carry old arguments, future anxieties, or imagine scenarios around all day, you are surrendering your peace to ghosts. Ghosts of things you cannot change. Ghosts that only live because you keep feeding them. So how do we begin to reclaim our mental space? With a simple discipline, magnificence. Not the trendy version, but the ancient kind. The kind that says, come back to now. Just now. Not yesterday. Not tomorrow. Just this breath. Just this step. Just this thought. When you feel overwhelmed, pause and breathe. Focus on that breath. Feel it move through you. It's not magic. It's clarity. The Stoics practiced this daily not to escape life, but to engage with it more fully. Present, aware, undistracted. And they paired mid-nonsense with self-minus reflection. Marcus Aurelius wrote journals not to impress, but to inspect. He questioned his thoughts, observed his emotions, and tracked his actions. Not to judge, but to understand. That's how you build what he called the inner citadel, a fortress of the mind, immune to the storms outside. Ask yourself this tonight: what thought controlled most of your day? Was it useful? Did it make you stronger? Did it bring peace or chaos? If it didn't serve you, let it go. Because the mind, like a garden, grows what you plant. If you water worry, fear grows. But if you nurture patience, reason, and clarity, peace begins to bloom. And peace doesn't mean passivity. It means power. The kind of power that can sit in silence and not feel empty. That can face pain without collapsing. That can choose a response rather than be driven by reaction. One final reminder from Marcus: you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. It's not a call to fear death. It's a call to live now with intention, with presence, with honor. Because mastering the mind isn't just a mental exercise, it's a spiritual one. It's how we find strength, not from controlling the world, but from knowing ourselves. And once you know yourself, no insult, no failure, no chaos can shake you. You become unshakable, unbothered, unmoved, not by coldness, but by calm. Let's be honest, most of us don't respond to life. We react. Quickly. Emotionally. Impulsively. Someone says something rude, and we snap. A delay happens, and we spiral. A plan changes, and we panic. We tell ourselves, it's just the way I am. But what if it's not? What if every reaction is a chance not to defend your pride, but to train your mind? This is the fourth Stoic lesson: mastering your response to external events. Because here's the harsh truth: the world doesn't tell you comfort. People will be rude. Plans will fall apart. Life will be unfair. The Stoics never denied this. But they also never let it define them. They taught a radical idea: you may not control what happens, but you always control how you respond. Epictetus said it best: if someone tried to take control of your body, you'd fight to protect it. But when someone insults you, you hand over your mind without resistance. That's what happens when we let anger or offense take the wheel. We hand over the keys to our peace. But peace is your responsibility. It's not something you wait for, it's something you choose. So the next time you're triggered, remember this: the first feeling is instinct. But the second moment, that pause, that's yours. That's where your freedom lies. Don't give it away. Here's a tool to build that pause, the Stoic pause. When something provokes you, count to 10. Slowly. Let the heat rise. Let the urge to respond scream. And then choose. Not out of pride, but out of principle. Not to prove you're right, but to protect your calm. Because not every comment deserves a comeback. Not every battle is worth your energy. Sometimes the greatest strength is in your stillness. And if you're thinking, but that's too hard, I can't help how I feel, the Stoics would say, of course you feel. But you are not your feelings. You are the chooser of what happens next. That's what emotional intelligence really is: not suppressing emotions, but steering them. Understanding where they come from. Deciding how to use them. A Stoic doesn't deny hurt or anger. he just doesn't bow to them. He lets them knock, but doesn't invite them in to take over the house. Each day, life will test you. Someone will push your buttons. And in that moment, you have a choice. Will you give them your mind or will you guard it? It's not easy, but it's freedom. And every time you respond with calm instead of chaos, you're building the life only a trained mind can create, one of dignity, clarity, and strength. Here's a question most people avoid. What do you do when life gives you something you didn't ask for, something painful, something unfair? You lose a job. A relationship ends. A plan falls apart. The first instinct is to resist. To ask why. To replay the pain, to wish it away. But the Stoics would tell you that resistance is where the real suffering begins. This is the fifth Stoic lesson: resilience through acceptance. And it's one of the hardest and most powerful lessons of all. Acceptance isn't giving up. It's waking up. It's saying this happened. I didn't choose it, but I choose how to face it. Marcus Aurelius faced betrayal, sickness, war, and death not with despair, but with composure. He didn't write to vent his grief. He wrote to remind himself you were born to endure. You were built for this. Because that's what Stoic acceptance is: not passive, not resigned, but fierce. It's the kind of strength that looks at misfortune and says, I will not crumble. I will learn. Think of a tree in a storm. It doesn't resist the wind. It bends. It yields. It moves with the storm, and that's how it survives. If it fought every gust, it would snap. But by accepting the force, it grows roots deeper and becomes stronger. You are that tree. The question is, are you bending or are you breaking? Here's a way to practice Stoic acceptance every morning. Identify one thing you cannot control. Say it out loud. And say, I accept this. Then ask, how can I grow from it? It might be something small: traffic, the weather. Or something big: a loss, a decision you regret. But each act of acceptance plants the seed of resilience. And that resilience compounds. Because once you stop resisting reality, you start working with it. You stop wasting energy wishing things were different and start using that energy to change what can be changed: your mindset, your attitude, your habits. The Stoics believe that life is nature. And nature doesn't ask your permission. It flows. It changes. It storms. But it also grows, evolves, and adapts. And so must you. In the end, accept incessant weakness. It's wisdom. It's the wisdom to say, this is my moment. I didn't choose the conditions, but I choose my character. And in that choice lies the very essence of inner strength. Because real peace doesn't come from getting everything you want. It comes from aligning yourself with what is and making something beautiful from it. Here's something they never taught us in school: emotions are not the enemy. They're messengers. Signals. But if we don't learn to read them, they end up driving us into anger, anxiety, regret. Stoicism doesn't tell you to ignore your emotions. It teaches you how to work with them. That's what the sixth Stoic lesson is about: emotional agility. The ability to feel deeply but still think clearly. To let emotions speak but not let them command. Marcus Aurelius felt fear. He felt sorrow. He felt the weight of an empire on his shoulders. But he didn't let those feelings dictate his actions. He trained himself to pause, observe, and respond not with impulse, but with intention. And you can too. Start by noticing what you feel without judgment. Label it. I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling jealous. That simple act gives you distance. It turns emotion from a storm into a signal. You stop being inside the reaction and start being the watcher of it. Because once you name an emotion, you tame it. Here's the second step. Ask yourself, why am I feeling this? What story am I telling myself? Most of our emotional chaos doesn't come from the event, but from the meaning we attach to it. You weren't just passed over for a promotion. You told yourself, "I'm not good enough." You weren't just ghosted by someone. You told yourself, "I'm unlovable." The emotion rides on that story. Change the story and the emotion begins to loosen its grip. This doesn't mean you'll never feel overwhelmed again. You will. You're a human. But with practice, you'll start to experience your emotions like waves, strong, yes, but temporary. They come. They rise. They fall. And you remain. You are the ocean, not the wave. Think about the most powerful people. Not the loudest, not the angriest, but the ones who remain calm in chaos. They're not numb. They're trained. They built the muscle of emotional control through reflection, reason, and repetition. That's what Stoicism offers, a way to feel fully undecked wisely. To bring both your heart and your mind to every moment, but to let the mind lead. So when you feel joy, pause, savor it. Learn from it. Ask, what does this teach me about what matters? When you feel sadness, do the same. Let it move through you. But don't let it own you. Because the moment you realize you are not your emotions, you become free to live with them, not under them. That is emotional agility. That is strength. That is the Stoic way. Have you ever noticed how much of your suffering comes not from events themselves, but from your attachment to how you wanted them to go? A plan gets canceled. Someone doesn't text back. You lose something you've been clinging to, and suddenly, your peace unravels. But what if you could still care without crumbling? What if you could engage fully in life, but remain unshaken when life doesn't play along? This is the seventh Stoic secret: detachment. And it might be the most misunderstood. Because detachment isn't cold. It isn't apathy. It isn't not caring. It's about caring wisely. Caring where your effort matters, your character, your choices, your reactions, not in clinging to things beyond your influence. The Stoics believe that we suffer not because things happen, but because we confuse what's ours and what isn't. Your job? Not yours. Your reputation? Not yours. Your body, even your health, ultimately not yours to control. But your principles? Your perspective? Your judgment? Always yours. Always under your command. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of the most powerful empire on earth, said you may not control the external events, but you can always control how you approach them. That is where your freedom lies. And what greater freedom is there than to say this matters, but it doesn't define me? Detachment begins when we stop confusing value with possession. When we understand that beauty, love, success, they're meant to be experienced, not owned. When we hold things loosely, gratefully, without clutching. Like holding water in your hands, tighten your grip and it slips away. Cup it gently, and you feel its presence fully. Let's bring this down to real life. Say you've been working hard for something, a project, a promotion, a relationship, and it falls apart. Most people spiral. I've wasted my time. I must not be good enough. But the Stoic says I gave it my best. My effort was virtuous. The result is not mine to owe, and then he lets it go. This doesn't mean you become passive. It means you become unbreakable. Because your identity no longer rests on outcomes. You're rooted in something deeper, your internal compass. Now ask yourself, what's one thing you've been overly attached to? An outcome? A version of yourself? someone else's opinion. And what has that attachment cost you mentally, emotionally, spiritually? This is the part where detachment becomes liberation. Because when you stop clinging, you start living. You stop needing the world to go your way in order to feel okay. And that's the path to serenity, not through control, but through clarity. The Stoics weren't emotional as monks sitting on mountaintops. They were soldiers, emperors, slaves, teachers. They felt everything. But they didn't let their feelings own them. They observed. They reflected. They responded. To practice detachment, try this exercise daily. Pick one situation in your life that causes stress. Pause. Ask, is this within my control? If yes, act with intention. If not, practice releasing it. Not because it doesn't matter, but because your peace matters more. Detachment is also essential for decision minus making. Think about how often emotions cloud your judgment. What if I lose this? What will they think of me? That's attachment speaking. But when you're detached, you see clearly. You choose not for approval, not from fear, but from alignment, from principle, from reason. This is why Stoic detachment isn't about avoidance. It's about presence. It's about being in the world, but not owned by it. Let's go even deeper. What about detachment from your own emotions? That anger, that jealousy, that fear. You feel it rise, and instead of saying, "This is me," you say, "This is a visitor." It is here, but it is not my identity. You breathe. You watch. You wait. And when the wave passes, you're still standing calm, aware, untouched. That's what Marcus called the inner-seated mental fortress that no insult, no loss, no disappointment can breach. Not because you're numb, but because you've trained yourself to remain whole, no matter what breaks around you. And yes, it's hard, but it's possible. And every time you catch yourself before reacting, every time you step back and ask, is this mine to hold? You are training your mind. You are rewiring your life. Because here's the paradox of detachment: the less you cling, the more you enjoy. You stop trying to control people, and your relationships deepen. You stop obsessing over outcomes, and your work becomes more meaningful. You stop fighting reality, and life begins to flow. Think of the sun. It shines without needing anything in return. It doesn't try to own the sky. It just offers its light and moves on. That's Stoic detachment. Not needing, not grasping, just being fully present and fully free. So as you move through life, repeat this quiet mantra to yourself: when things don't go your way, I release what is not mine. I return to what is. What is yours? Your mind, your choices, your peace. Everything else, let it come. Let it go. You are not here to control the waves. You are here to become the ocean. There's a kind of silence that's louder than any noise. A kind of stillness that reveals more truth than 1,000 conversations. And in that silence, if you're willing to listen, you will meet someone you often avoid yourself. This is the 8th Stoic practice: reflective meditation. Not meditation to empty the mind, but to examine it. Not to escape thought, but to sharpen it. To sit with your life not in judgment, but in curiosity. Because here's the truth: most people live unconsciously. Days blur. Habits repeat. Emotions run rampant. And all the while, they never pause to ask, why did I react that way? What do I keep avoiding? Am I becoming who I want to be or who I've settled into? The Stoics believed that unexamined thoughts are like weeds in a garden. Left alone, they grow wild. But tended to daily with reflection and attention, they can be pruned, reshaped, and even transformed into clarity and virtue. Marcus Aurelius didn't write Meditations to publish a book. He wrote to himself. He wrote to anchor his mind, to challenge his ego, to remind himself of who he was trying to become. That's what reflective meditation is. It's not about perfection. It's about alignment. It's not about silence. It's about seeing. So how do we practice it? Start with this each night. Carve out 10-15 minutes. No phone. No noise. Just you, your mind, and a blank page. Ask yourself 3 questions. What did I do well today? Where did I fall short? What can I do better tomorrow? Write honestly. No shame. No performance. Just clarity. Because clarity is the seed of change. When you can name your patterns, you can outgrow them. When you can see your emotional triggers, you can disarm them. When you can admit where you acted from ego, you open space for growth. This is the practice of self-minus accountability, not guilt, not perfectionism, but the gentle discipline of improvement. As Epictetus said, don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. And to embody anything, you must see where you've been out of alignment. But this practice goes deeper than behavior. It leads you inward to the roots. Ask yourself, what am I chasing? Why does that outcome matter to me? What fear is driving this habit? These are uncomfortable questions, but they are the keys to your freedom. Because the enemy is not out there, it's often the unexamined belief within you. The belief that says I need to prove myself to be worthy. I have to please everyone to be loved. If I fail, I am nothing. Left unchecked, these silent scripts run your life. But in the stillness of reflection, they lose power. They are exposed and then replaced. And what replaces them? Principles. Virtues. Clarity. You begin to act from values, not from wounds. You make decisions from wisdom, not from insecurity. And slowly, you build your inner compass, something stronger than emotion, more stable than circumstance. Reflective meditation also trains another rare trait, emotional humility. The ability to admit, I was wrong. I overreacted. I can do better. Not because you're weak, but because you're strong enough to evolve. Each night, you become your own coach, your own therapist, your own mirror. You stop outsourcing growth and start owning it. And over time, that daily practice compounds. A year from now, your patterns change. Your confidence deepens. Your triggers shrink. Your focus sharpens. Not because life got easier, but because you became wiser. And distant at the point? Not to float through the world numb and distracted, but to walk through it awakened, accountable. Now let's take it even further. Use visualization during your reflection. Picture tomorrow's challenges. A hard conversation. A temptation. A fear. Then ask, what would a Stoic do? What would the best version of me do? See it. Rehearse it. Train for it. This is what Marcus did before battles, not just preparing his army, but preparing his mind. Because no matter how strong your sword is, if your thoughts are chaotic, you've already lost. And in today's world full of noise, comparison, and distraction, this kind of inner training is more needed than ever. So here's your challenge starting tonight. Begin the habit. 1 page. 1 honest session. 1 quiet room. It will feel strange at first, but over time, It becomes your anchor. Because when the world gets loud and your emotions swell, you'll have a place to return to. A still point. A quiet place where truth is waiting. Not outside, but inside you. That is the power of reflective meditation. Not to escape reality, but to engage with it more wisely. To meet yourself not once in a lifetime, but every single day. To look in the mirror, not to criticize, but to calibrate. To sit in silence, not to numb, but to know. And in that knowing you find peace. Let me ask you something. What would your life look like if you stopped resisting everything that went wrong and started loving it? Not just accepting it. Not tolerating it. Loving it. That's what the Stoics called Amor Fati, the love of fate. It's the ninth Stoic secret, and perhaps the most radical. Because it's not about wishing for a better life. It's about making peace with the one you have. It's about turning every wound, every detour, every loss into something sacred. Marcus Aurelius wrote to love only what happens, but was destined. No greater harmony. This was just poetic musing. It was survival. He buried children, fought plagues, faced betrayal. Yet he chose not just to endure, but to embrace. Why? Because he understood what so many of us forget: fate is not the enemy. It's the fire that forges you. It doesn't punish, it purifies. It doesn't block your path, it is the path. Imagine if, instead of saying, "Why me?" every time life turned sideways, you said, "Yes." This too. Imagine the freedom in that. The peace. Not because you enjoy the pain, but because you trust its purpose. This doesn't mean you stop grieving, stop feeling, stop hoping. It means you stop resisting. You stop fighting reality and start shaping yourself through it. There's a story told of a Stoic who lost everything. His home, his family, his wealth. When asked how he could remain calm, he replied, "Because I lost only what was never mine to keep." That's Amor Fati. A deep, quiet trust that what comes is meant to come. And what goes is meant to go. That life is wiser than your plans. That you don't need to control it, you need to cooperate with it. But how do we live this way? How do we move from resistance to reverence? Start here the next time something goes wrong. Say out loud, Amor Fati, not sarcastically, not with bitterness, but as a prayer, a declaration, a shift. Remind yourself this moment is not against me. It is for me. Even if I don't see it yet. Then look closer. Ask, what is this trying to teach me? What strength is this demanding of me? What flaw is this exposing in me? Because every fate brings a lesson. And every lesson, if embraced, becomes fuel. And gratitude plays a part here. Not just the gratitude for what's easy, but for what's hard. Be grateful for the delay, it taught you patience. Be grateful for the heartbreak, it taught you boundaries. Be grateful for the failure, it taught you humility. Nothing is wasted when you live this way. Nothing is meaningless. Even your darkest days become part of the mosaic. This doesn't mean you like everything. It means you love the opportunity inside everything. Even when the door slams shut, Amor Fati says, "I may not have chosen this, but I will choose what to do with it." That is power. That is ownership. That is freedom. There is profound strength in the person who stops needing the world to go their way and starts showing up for life as it is, with courage and grace. And let's be real, Amor Fati is not a switch you flip. It's a practice. Some days, you'll resist. You'll rage. You'll want to rewrite the script. That's okay. But always come back to this: what if this is exactly what I needed? You may not see it today, but in time, you will. Because life, in its strange and oft unpainful wisdom, gives you the lessons your soul needs, not the comforts your ego craves. So practice daily. Journal one challenge and find its gift. Speak Amor Fati when things fall apart. Reframe loss as a teacher. Look back on your life and notice every detour, every heartbreak, every failure made you who you are. And if you love who you are becoming, then you must love the road that got you here. That's the essence of Amor Fati. Not blind positivity, not toxic optimism, but sacred acceptance, deep reverence, mature trust. To say, I won't just survive this. I will let it shape me, strengthen me, soften me. And someday I will be grateful it happened. In that moment, you're no longer a victim of fate. You are a student of it. A partner. A poet. A stoic. And that, friend, is the beginning of real peace, not when life goes your way, but when your heart opens to life exactly as it is. Let's end with a paradox. You become truly powerful not when you care more, but when you care less about the wrong things. This is the final Stoic secret: Stoic indifference, the art of remaining composed, balanced, and focused, not because you don't feel, but because you know it's worth feeling about. In modern life, we're pulled in 100 directions. Opinions, status, gossip, trends, expectations. And all of them, if we're not careful, become strings tied to our attention, yanking us this way and that. That's not freedom. That's slavery. But Stoic indifference, it cuts the strings. Marcus Aurelius said we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Why? Because we're constantly reacting to things that don't matter: what someone posted, what someone said, what might happen. The Stoic says, pause. Is this mine to care about? Does this deserve my peace? If not, he lets it go. That's not apathy. It's precision. It's emotional discipline. It's recognizing that your energy is limited and your mind is a fortress, not a dumping ground. Here's the first principle: know your circle of control. Inside it, your actions, your mindset, your attitude. Outside it, other people's choices, the weather, the economy, the past. The Stoics say care deeply about what's inside the circle. Be indifferent to the rest. Think about how much stress you carry from things that don't belong to you: someone's rude comment, a stranger's judgment, a situation you couldn't change. Why? Why offer your serenity to something powerless to define you? Stoic indifference says not today, not ever. Try this the next time something triggers you. Ask, is this within my influence? If not, can I let it pass through me like wind through an open door? Because that's the thing: Stoic indifference is like a filter. It lets in what nourishes. It blocks what distracts. And over time, you build an inner climate where peace becomes the default, not the exception. But don't confuse indifference with emotional detachment. You still love. You still care. You still feel. But you choose how much. You choose where. You give your heart wisely, not carelessly. Let's go deeper. You probably heard this: don't get too high with praise, or too low with criticism. That's stoicism. That's indifference in action. Because the moment your worth depends on approval, you've handed yourself minus esteem to strangers. Epictetus once said, if you want to be invincible, then don't enter into combat where you cannot win. That means don't fight battles that aren't yours. Don't chase validation. Don't cling to outcomes. Focus on virtue. Focus on your lane. Now imagine this kind of person, someone who smiles in chaos, who moves calmly in a storm, who isn't swayed by flattery or insult. That's not detachment. That's mastery. That's what Stoic indifference trains you for. Here's another way to practice it in daily life. Catch the small things. The traffic. The delay. The noise. Pause. Then say, "This does not deserve my disturbance." You'll be amazed at how many of your reactions were automatic, not intentional. This creates emotional efficiency. You stop wasting energy. You stop leaking power. And what's left? Presence. Clarity. Strength. But the deepest power of Stoic indifference comes during loss. When life takes something, your money, your title, even a loved one, the Stoic mourns, yes. He feels deeply. But he also remembers nothing was ever truly mine. It was alone. I cherished it. Now I release it. That doesn't make the pain go away, but it gives it context. It gives it meaning. And above all, it keeps the mind from crumbling. Because the goal is not to feel nothing. The goal is to remain unshaken in the face of anything. So as you move forward, ask yourself often, does this deserve me? Not in arrogance, but in awareness. Choose your battles. Guard your mind. Direct your care. And above all, protect your peace. In the end, Stoic indifference is not a cold heart, it's a warm one, protected by boundaries. A mind at peace, not because life is easy, but because you've trained it to stay centered. And that, dear listener, is the art of Stoicism. The art of living with strength and softness, with discipline and joy, with ground and courage in a world that pulls you in every direction. You've now seen 10 timeless principles. 10 tools for the mind. 10 ways to build a life of inner power. But remember, knowing isn't enough. Reading isn't enough. The real Stoic path begins when you apply. In moments of pain. In moments of choice. In moments when life offers you an excuse to lose yourself and you choose, instead, to return to your center. That's mastery. That's wisdom. That's the way forward. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Let this truth guide you. Let your mind be the master, not the servant. Let your peace be earned, not given. Let your life become a quiet testament to everything you've learned. And above all, let the Stoic in you rise, not someday, but today. Now that we've explored each of the 10 Stoic secrets in depth, you might be wondering, what now? Where do I begin? How do I take all of these ideas, these principles, these ancient voices, and turn them into something real? Something left? Here's the truth: the Stoics knew wisdom isn't found in words. It's forged in action. They didn't write journals so they could sound profound. They wrote to remind themselves what to do the next time life tested them. And it always did. So don't let this be just another video. Let it be a mirror. Let it be a challenge. Let it be a turning point. Because the work begins now. Not in ideal conditions. Not after the next promotion or breakup or vacation. But here. In the ordinary. In the uncomfortable. In the moment you want to scroll away, complain, or react. That's the battleground. That's where you apply Stoicism. Not in perfection, but in progress. Daily. gritty, honest. Let's connect the dots. Lesson 1 told you perception is power. Change your lens, and you change your experience. Every moment becomes a choice between fear and clarity. Lesson 2 reminded you of rationality. That the emotional mind screams, but the wise mind speaks softly and always waits its turn. Lesson 3 asked you to train your mind like a muscle. To observe your thoughts. To remember that peace is not passive. It's practiced. Lesson 4 showed you that your greatest strength isn't in controlling the world, but in mastering your response to it. That every reaction is a mirror. Lesson 5 offered the key to resilience acceptance. The calm power of saying, "This too, I will face." Lesson 6 taught emotional agility. To feel everything, but follow nothing blindly. To live with both heart and head. Lesson 7 introduced you to detachment, not as a way to escape life, but to stand more rooted in it. Unmoved by things that don't belong to you. Lesson 8 turned you inward with reflective meditation. A nightly check minus in with your deepest self. A compass minus setting in silence. Lesson 9 whispered the radical promise of Amor Fati, that you could love even the pain, even the detour, because it all belongs to your becoming. And Lesson 10 showed you the strength of indifference. That you can still care but only where it counts. That your peace is too precious to be spent on things beneath you. Together, these are not rules. They're not theories. They are practices. Lived values. Tools forged by fire and time, passed down through centuries not because they're fancy, but because they work. But they only work if you use them. That's where your courage comes in. To pause before replying. To journal when you'd rather numb out. To breathe when you feel like shouting. To choose presence over panic. Principle over pride. Stillness over noise. You won't get it perfect. That's not the goal. The Stoics never claimed perfection. They aimed for progress. For inner strength. For harmony with nature and integrity with self. So maybe your real work is not to memorize these lessons but to live them. To embed them in your breath. To carry them into your morning commute. Your difficult conversations. Your moments of loneliness, fear, joy, and doubt. Because this isn't about pretending to be unbothered. It's about becoming unbreakable, not by hardening, but by deepening. By building a mind that knows what it values. A mind that's clear. Anchored. Alive. That's the Stoic promise. That's what's waiting for you not in books, but in the next moment you choose to return to your center. So let this final reflection echo in you. You will face trials. You will lose things. You will doubt yourself. But you will also grow stronger. Wiser. Softer in the right places. Firmer in others. And someday, when you're in the thick of life's storm, and someone asks how you stay so calm, you'll smile. Not because the storm is easy, but because you've trained for it. Because you built your inner citadel. And because you now know you have power over your mind. Not outside events. And that is where your true strength lies. So here we are. 12 lessons later. 1,000 reflections deeper. And yet, in many ways, we've only just begun. Because the Stoic journey doesn't end with knowledge. It begins with practice. With repetition. With remembering what you already knew but had forgotten in the noise. Let me ask you, who are you when things fall apart? Who are you when no one is watching? When life is unfair, when others are unkind, when fate feels cruel, who do you become? That is your training ground. That is your stoic moment. And now you're ready for it. You've learned how to calm the storm not by controlling the sea, but by mastering the sailor. You've seen that peace is not passive, it's earned. That clarity doesn't arrive, it's carved. That wisdom isn't inherited, it's forged in the fire of lived experience. Marcus Aurelius was born wise. Epictetus was born resilient. Seneca was born serene. They became that way through pain, through patience, through practice. So must you. You don't need a perfect routine. You don't need hours of meditation. You don't need to become someone else. You just need to start. Today. With what you have. Where you are. Pause when you want to react. Reflect when you want to escape. Breathe when you want to explode. Choose reason when you feel rage. Choose calm when you feel chaos. Choose the harder path not because it's noble, but because it's yours. That is the Stoic life. Not a performance. Not a brand. Not a trend. A quiet strength. A humble clarity. A daily discipline of returning to what matters, to what lasts, to what is within. So when the world gets loud, come back here. To this space. To your breath. To your circle of control. When doubt creeps in, remember everything you need is already inside you. The wisdom. The discipline. The courage. It's been waiting. Now, it's time to use it. And when the storm's coming, you won't beg for calm. You'll be the calm. You'll walk through fire, not unburned but unchanged at your core. Because you trained your mind to hold steady. To see clearly. To act justly. And one day, someone will look at you and ask, how do you stay so grounded? And you'll say, because I built my life on what no one can take from me. Your thoughts. Your choices. Your character. Your peace. That's the art of Stoicism. That's the strength you now carry. And as you go forward, let these words guide you not just today, but every day. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Now go live it. With clarity. With courage. With calm. And when the world tries to pull you off course, smile quietly. You are the storm now. Thank you for listening. Stay grounded. Stay strong. And until we meet again, may you walk the Stoic path with peace in your heart and fire in your purpose.